Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's dive right in and take a very deliberate, measured look at a dietary trend that is completely taken over wellness circles lately, the carnivore diet. If you spend any time online at all, you've definitely seen influencers claiming that eating literally nothing but meat is the ultimate cure-all. But look, just because influencer with millions of followers says that the carnivore diet is the absolute best choice for everyone, it doesn't necessarily mean they're right. Today, we're going to separate that viral social media hype from the actual complex nutritional biochemistry. Now, you might be wondering, and it's honestly the most logical question to ask, if the long term reality of this diet is potentially dangerous, why on earth do so many people report feeling absolutely amazing when they start it? Why do their joints suddenly stop aching? Why does that stubborn brain fog finally lift? Well, we're going to explore exactly why people swear by this diet and why confusing short term symptom relief with long term disease progression is such a common and powerfully deceptive biological trap. To really understand the appeal, we have to look at a phase one, the short term honeymoon. Spanning the first 3 to 6 months, the early success that people rave about isn't necessarily some magical healing property of the meat itself. Actually, it's just the result of adopting the ultimate elimination diet by strictly following this protocol. You were completely removing the main drivers of systemic inflammation and gut irritation, the ultra processed foods, the refined carbs, and the sugars. And by cutting all those carbs, your insulin levels absolutely plummet. Your body then depletes its stored glycogen, which means you naturally shed massive amounts of water weight very, very rapidly. And the results of that phase, well, they're highly documented. Take a look at the university study monitoring a 3 week carnivore diet intervention in healthy adults. The participants experienced rapid, statistically significant weight loss, and mechanically speaking, rapidly losing the visceral fat actually shuts down the production line of inflammatory signals that fat tissue actively secretes. So you're losing weight and you're lowering low grades systemic inflammation at the exact same time. It's a powerful combo. But beyond just the weight loss, there is a really profound chemical shift happening inside your body called the BHB effect. When you eat zero carbohydrates, your body enters deep ketosis and produces a ketone called beta hydroxybutyrate, or BHB for short. Now, BHB is incredibly fascinating because it acts as a signaling molecule that directly blocks the NLRP3 inflammasome. You can think of the inflammasome like a intracellular switch for inflammation. So by flipping that switch off, chronic joint pain and certain autoimmune issues often just vanish early on. And you can see why this heavily convinces people that the diet is a permanent miraculous cure. But what happens when the temporary intervention becomes a multi-year lifestyle? Well, the story changes dramatically. The short term anti inflammatory honeymoon begins to violently crash with chronic cellular stress. What social mean creators often ignore, or maybe they just haven't experienced it yet, is that standard human physiology simply isn't equipped to safely handle the multi-year reality of this extreme nutritional profile. One of the most severe long-term effects actually occurs in how your body manages cholesterol. We need to talk about the downregulation of LDL receptors. Over a multi-year period, the relentless daily intake of saturated fat from an all-meat diet essentially floods the liver. And in response to this flood, the liver drastically reduces the activity and physical presence of its LDL receptors. This creates a massive clearance problem. The liver can no longer effectively pull those LDLs particles out of your body. So they're just left there to circulate and accumulate for much, much longer. And the result of that clearance problem is genuinely staggering. Circulating LDL cholesterol levels are driven into massive sky-high ranges that literally mimic severe genetic disorders. We are talking about levels exceeding 500 milligrams per deciliter. In some of these long-term practitioners, standard medical consensus firmly establishes that having highly elevated LDL over multiple years increases your absolute risk of cardiovascular disease, ultimately leading to arterial wall penetration and plaque buildup. But there's an absolute crucial point to understand. High cholesterol is a silent risk. It doesn't physically hurt because these long-term dieters still feel highly energetic from the ketosis and the lack of joint pain they used to have. They falsely assume their arteries are perfectly healthy inside. This is the exact reason why 30-day before and after lab test shown in a viral video is fundamentally incapable of predicting the real long-term biological cost of vascular lipid overload. Meanwhile, there's another hidden burden slowly accumulating in the digestive tract. A strict zero-fiber diet drastically alters your gut microbiome over time. The good bacteria that produce protective butyrate, they literally starve, and that leads to a dangerous thinning of the gut's mucosate. When you combine that thin layer with massive quantities of dietary fat, it allows inflammatory bacterial fragments to actually cross the intestinal wall and directly into the bloodstream. It's a process called metabolic endotoxemia, and slowly but surely, this triggers a chronic release of inflammatory markers right back into your system. The genetic outliers, lean mass hyperresponders, not to be completely fair, we absolutely have to acknowledge that there are exceptions to the rule. These folks are typically very fit, metabolically healthy individuals who go zero carb and experience those massive lipid spikes we just talked about. Yet, somehow they maintain impeccable metabolic health markers like high HDL, very low triglycerides, and incredibly low inflammation. For a small few, it seems their bodies just package and burn these lipids differently than the rest of us. Prominent metabolic researchers like Dr. Nick Norwitz have actually proven that these genetic and metabolic lottery winners do exist. However, the broader clinical data shows this is dangerous exception. It's not the rule. To quote research surrounding this, just like a person who smokes pack a day and lives to 100 doesn't mean smoking is safe. A lean carnivore with an LDL of 500 and a clean scan today cannot assume they will remain plaque-free tomorrow. The sheer physical reality of crowding your bloodstream with lipids eventually catches up to the vast majority of people. So where does this leave to the vast majority of individuals? Well, to summarize, the influencers aren't lying about the initial benefits, the rapid weight loss, the greatly improved insulin control, and the profound anti-inflammatory effects of BHB. Those are very real, but they are incredibly often ignoring the invisible multi-year burdens. That extreme cholesterol accumulation, a starved gut microbiome, metabolic endotoxemia, and the slow, silent buildup of arterial plaque, which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Just because influencers' joint pain vanishes in month 1, that does not erase the vascular reality of year 5. The ultimate question you have to ask yourself is this: is the relief of the initial honeymoon actually worth the long-term biological cost of the marriage? It's quite literally a gamble with your cellular health. Are you? To take those odds, thanks for joining me today. Keep learning and always keep questioning the hype.